All right, so I thought I would go through and do a how to increase your protein video to help you guys out. So obviously you've got the attached PDF, and this is just the video that goes along with it. A few people have asked for this, like obviously a few clients have asked for this. So I thought I'd go through what may seem like some obvious options, but they may not be obvious unless you've been told about them. So first thing we're going to go through is like supplements. So protein supplements are the very easy way to increase your protein intake without having to really eat a significant amount of food. Using protein powders, you can put them in a shake, put them with a heap of berries or fruit or whatever you desire, really. Get a lot of micronutrients in, like, spinach blends up in a blender very easily and you don't taste it. It just changes everything to green. Get your protein intake higher without having to sit down and eat more meat, because some people may be vegetarian. There is vegan protein powders out there on the market, and they're very easily to get hold of. Coles has a great brand that offers a vegan protein powder. So when you just pick up your protein powder from Coles while you're doing your weekly shopping, it makes it super easy. Now, the one complaint that people have with protein powder is it's expensive. And initially, yes, buying, say 20 or 30 servings of protein powder in form of, in a bag, maybe $30 or $40. But you're getting 20 to 25, depending on the brand, grams of protein per scoop, which works out to be just under the same macronutrients as chicken. So if you think about, it's 100 grams of chicken for 33 grams of protein cooked, 150 grams of raw weight. I don't even know what 150 times 30 would work out to be, 1,500, 13. It works out to be about the same price, I think, if I really quickly do the maths off the top of my head, as, actual meat. So, and it is an easy way to get your protein powder increase through smoothies, some recipes. If you go down that path of cooking with protein powder, do have those options in there. So what I've got here for you is basically just a summary of that. The two brands that I recommend to people, one is this Bulk Nutrients brand. They're Australian owned, they're very cheap, they're from Tasmania, shipping's very quick. You just have to buy it online because they don't get stocked in stores. The other brand I recommend, ironically, and I've brought this up already, is the Coles protein powder. The reason I say that is because it's super easy to get hold of, because Coles stock it, and you just go down to the supermarket when you do your shopping, and there you go. And flavor profile wise, it's actually relatively up there and tastes really good. So the actual Coles brand protein powder is good, and both of these companies have a vegan option, and they also I get a little bit of a sensitive stomach from protein powder, and neither of these brands have that issue with me. If you do have a very sensitive stomach, I do recommend you go with a whey protein isolate over a whey protein concentrate, and the reason for that being is the whey protein isolate is a little bit more refined and doesn't have as much lactose in it. Okay, so protein powders are probably the easiest way to increase it, because you can just drink it with a couple 100 ml of water and you get 50 grams of protein in there. It's happy days. The second one is protein bars, cookies, protein chips. That next step above protein powder is already being formulated. So protein bars are handy because you can keep them on you. You keep them in your car, keep them in your handbag, keep them in your gym bag, take them to work. They're literally just the size of a bar. It makes it very simple. The downside that protein bars generally do have is that they have sugar alcohol in them. Not you're going to get drunk and blow over, if you get pulled over, but they can mess with people's stomachs a little bit. So I would just be mindful, if you're someone who is sensitive to sugar alcohol, read the label. Make sure that you're all good with the ingredients. They're not harmful in any way. They're just another way that protein powder has already been adjusted to make it different flavor profiles and adjustable. So I've just put up a few of my favorite ones here. Again, these are super handy because you can just get them from the supermarket. They're $2, $3, $4 each, which is the same price as most snacks. And they're handy to have in the cupboard, in your work bag, in your gym bag, wherever it may be. They are a really handy snack. Now, some people don't like the flavor profile of them. Personally, these are the ones that I like the flavor profile of. This is very biased towards my own personal preferences. I understand that. But, these are the ones that I like. The Quest brand, the Muscle Nation brand, Musashi, and, the Aussie Bodies low carb ones are all very nice to eat. They don't have a weird texture. And there is also vegan protein bars available. Again, $4 for a protein bar. Some people say, well, that's super expensive. At the end of the day, it's a snack. It is still a meal. So, if you're trying to increase your protein intake and you're looking for a food source, for a quick, easy 2 protein bars, you'll get, 50 grams of protein in, and you've got, a meal for under $10. Some of them do have a higher carbohydrate content in them than others, and just check that. Make sure it fits into your macros for the day. Now, there's been a massive over the years, increase in people wanting to get into fitness, take care of their health, increasing their protein intake. So there's a lot of companies out there that will make a high protein alternative to the normal alternative. So I've just listed out a few here. Yogurt is a big one. Greek yogurt. You've got so many different brands out there that have a high protein alternative. Some unflavored. Some already have the flavoring in there. So if you're not adverse to dairy, just due to dietary requirements, there is options out there from a protein perspective that do have a higher protein. So again, 20 grams of protein in one of these YoPros, a couple of them, that's 40 grams of protein. So if you've got a protein target of 160 grams per day, and you generally eat, 3 meals and 1 snack, a couple of these tubs of yogurt will be quite sufficient in regards to getting that 40 grams of protein if you split it up evenly. Now, the other thing to think about here is that when a company has a increased protein target within their food, when they increase the protein in it, they usually take away from the fat source. So a company will often name a product high protein because it is lower fat, and then the ratio of the traditional product is, the fat is lower and the protein is higher than the traditional product. Rather than calling it reduced fat, they've called it high protein. So that's one thing you can do with cheese. If you eat dairy, is you can go with a light cheese, which would be lower calories per serve, but the protein remains the same. So if the protein remains the same, but the total calories are lower, right? That means technically it is higher in protein because you're getting more protein per serve compared to the traditional version where the calories equate but the fat is higher, right? So you can get more protein for the same amount of calories as the other cheese. There is a few other alternatives out there. So, just a couple of examples. The, pizza bases, Coles have now got a low carb bread, which because they're using a low carb, I don't quite know the science on how they've made this, but it then turns out to be higher protein. So there may be a soy protein that they've used in there, and that's totally fine. There's a little bit of research in regards to adverse effects of soy protein in men, but you're not going to be eating a loaf of bread at a time. Now the downside is sometimes this, they can be a little bit more expensive, but it will get you into the habit of having those higher protein targets. And again, when you look at it and go, well, this bread may be 20 grams of protein per 2 serves, and then you translate that over to say meat, it generally works out to be the same sort of pricing to hit your protein target. Wraps, low carb, high protein, that goes back to what I was saying before about companies will make a low carb product, and then because of the carbs are lower, the calories are lower, and the protein is higher based on the traditional product for the calories that you consume. There's some high carb pasta as well out on the market, which is really, really handy as well. Again, a little bit more expensive, but again, when we're equating the protein target, it all kind of comes out in the wash. There's even protein cereals. Again, don't be fooled by the fact of it's high protein. These are generally cereals they've been slightly manipulated to have a higher protein. So if you're someone who like eat Wheat Bix, I don't know anyone really over the age of 12 that eats Wheat Bix, but if you're someone who eats Wheat Bix, you buy the higher protein option, and you may get an extra 10 or 20 grams of protein per serving compared to what you traditionally would as well. Now, there's a few miscellaneous products out there on the market that kind of just come in the other category. You have the high protein milks, dairy and almond. Products like high protein peanut butter, there's many high protein alternatives. These are just an example, like Up and Goes and then the Carmen's bars as well. Now there's a couple ways you can assist yourself in structuring how to hit your protein for the day. Take note of how many meals per day you traditionally eat, going back to the 160 grams of protein per day target. Someone that eats 4 meals, that allows you to know that you need 40 grams of protein per meal. So that's how you can kind of aim for that. You can pre-plan knowing, hey, I'll need 40 grams of protein per meal. So you can pre-plan your protein sources based around that. All right. Prioritize protein first. So the easiest way to eat more protein is to eat more meat. I know that sounds like the most obvious thing that anyone's ever said, but sometimes people don't think of that. So if you prioritize your protein first and, simplify the foods, instead of having like a little bit of chicken in your stir fry, put maybe double the amount of chicken in there, so you're getting literally double the amount of protein. So one little hack that I want to, not really a hack, I guess, is just common sense. If you go onto the Coles website, you can literally just type in high protein, and it will bring up all the brands that have like high protein alternatives. So this is really handy to do. Same thing applies for Woolworths. You just go through and you can kind of get an idea of what you want to buy. There's obviously going to be a lot of like protein bars and protein powders and stuff like here. Coles has really implemented their protein supplement range, probably the best way to put it. So you'll find a lot of stuff you can now just buy at Coles at a cheaper rate than you can buy at a supplement store. You've even got high protein dog food now. What do you know? So you go through and there's a lot of high protein options. As you can see, I just basically went to the Coles website when I was building out these graphics for you. But the other thing you can do is just type in protein. All right, I know that sounds obvious, but I just wanted to go through, and you'll find that anything that has like a protein variable on it. So when I say variable, like has an increased protein for whatever it may be, you'll notice that it is in there. There's like 8 pages. We'll randomly go to like page 8 to show you, and we're still within the protein bar range. And then, little snack foods like the tasty nutty, the muesli bars. Sorry, I totally lost my train of thought there. Tofu, things that have got like classed as like higher protein, or they've had like a protein supplementation added to them whilst they're being made, will help. And then you obviously got your things like your tuna and your meats and stuff like that. A lot of vegan and vegetarian options there as well, but little changing the way that you consume your snacks, like these little protein bar, muesli bar things from Coles, 5 of them $3.50. If we go to the nutritional label, 10 grams of protein for one of them, 9 grams of fat and 12 grams of carbs. That's not terrible whatsoever. So you can basically get, you have 2 of them, you get 20 grams of protein in straight away. And I know some people really do struggle with getting their protein in. Realistically, it's not overly expensive. You just change like the way that you eat, change the way that you choose your foods, and there you go. You've got these Carmen's protein bars, which is just like a snack muesli bar, something easy to snack on, which will increase your daily protein because they do have that higher protein intake. And then some other cereals in there as well, some baby cheeses to fill out your work lunchbox, Fiber One brownies. If you go in there, you can have a scroll through and you'll find that there's a lot of foods in there that are very, very easy for you to, consume, very, very easy for you to increase your protein intake by the foods that you're already consuming and just slightly changing the variants that you're already eating. So instead of eating like a regular like muesli bar from Coles, just buy like the high protein version. All right, so that's a really good example. Milk is a big one. That's the only one I haven't put on there. Is if you're consuming full cream milk, change that to skim milk. It is lower calories per serve with the same amount of protein. So I hope this helps. If you have any questions, just shoot me a message and I'll be able to clarify some stuff for you. All right.